Okay, so picture this. It's the day after Christmas, 1900. You're on the deck of a ship, the Hesperus, and it's cutting through these absolutely frigid North Atlantic waters. Your destination? Eline Moor, basically a lonely chunk of rock with a brand new lighthouse on it. But as you get closer, you start to realize something is very, very wrong. The relief keeper on board, a man named Joseph Moore, he's the first one to spot the signs. The little things that are just off. The flagstaff? It's supposed to have a flag flying to greet them. It's bare. The landing platform where the supplies should be? Empty. The whole island is just wrapped in this heavy, wrong kind of silence. Moore later said he felt this deep sense of foreboding. Just a knot of dread twisting in his gut. So the ship's captain, he sounds the whistle. He even fires off a signal flare. And the response is nothing. Just that eerie silence. At this point, Joseph Moore, filled with that growing dread, gets into a small boat and rows to the shore all by himself. He's got to find out what happened to his friends. And just think about this climb. 160 steep steps, carved right into the rock face. And as he's climbing, he's shouting out their names. Ducat, Marshall, MacArthur. But the wind just tears the words right out of his mouth. He's climbing into this total, complete void. He finally gets to the top, and the entrance gate to the whole compound, it's closed. The main door to the lighthouse itself is also shut tight. But when he tries the handle, it turns. It's unlocked. He pushes it open, and he steps inside, not into a home, but into something that feels like a tomb. So, before we follow Moore any further and start looking for clues, we really need to understand who he was looking for. Because this story isn't just about a strange event. It's about the three men who were just erased. First, you had James Ducat. He was the principal keeper, a 43-year-old pro, a family man with a wife and 4 kids waiting for him. He was the steady hand. Then there was Thomas Marshall, the younger guy, only 28. He was super diligent, maybe even a little overly cautious because he'd once been fined for losing gear in a storm. And finally, Donald MacArthur. He was just a temporary keeper, a 40-year-old sailor. Tough as nails, but apparently he had a bit of a temper. So you've got these 3 very different guys all alone together on this ROP. All right, let's go back inside the lighthouse with Moore. He steps into the kitchen, and the first thing that hits him is the cold. The fire in the hearth is dead, and it's been dead for days. But here's the weird part. The room is spotless. Everything's washed and put away. It's a scene of perfect, disciplined order. But then his eyes start to catch these details, these little things that just scream that something is wrong. The kitchen clock has stopped dead. A single chair is knocked on its side like somebody jumped out of it in an absolute panic. The beds are unmade, which is normal for the morning. It's like you're looking at a normal day that was just shattered in an instant. And this is maybe the single most puzzling clue of the whole mystery. In the entrance hall, Moore finds the heavy waterproof gear, the oilskins. 2 sets are gone, but the 3rd set, Donald MacArthur's, is still hanging right there on its hook. I mean, really think about that. What could possibly happen that would make an experienced seaman run outside into a brutal North Atlantic winter without his coat? Whatever it was, it had to be something so terrifying, so sudden, that there was literally no time to think. Just pure, primal fear. Now, you've probably heard stories about a dramatic logbook they found, right? Entries talking about a supernatural storm and one of the keepers, MacArthur, crying in fear. It's a fantastic story, but it's a complete myth. It was made up years later. The real logbook was found, and its very last entry from December 15th was totally boring, just routine weather data. The truth in this case is so much colder and stranger than the fiction. Okay, so the clues inside are confusing. Let's head outside, because when a full search party finally arrives, they start examining the rest of the island, and what they discover on the western landing platform, the side that faces the raw power of the Atlantic, it points to a force that's almost beyond comprehension. First, you gotta let this number sink in. The landing platform, where they kept all the supplies, was carved into the cliff 110 feet above the ocean. That's like standing on the roof of a 10-story building. It should have been completely safe from any wave. And yet, the search party found a boulder that weighed over a ton. We're talking more than 2,000 pounds that had been ripped out of the cliff higher up and just tossed onto the pathway. The sheer power needed to do that is just mind-boggling. And that was just the start of it. A heavy supply crate? smashed to smithereens. Thick iron railings that were cemented into the rock, they were bent and twisted like paper clips. A railway track they used to haul supplies up the cliff was torn clean from its foundation. Something with almost biblical force had hit this place.
So to try and solve this thing, they sent in their top investigator, Superintendent Robert Muirhead. He was actually the guy who hired the keepers, so this was personal for him. He looked at all the evidence, the tidy kitchen, that overturned chair, the coat left behind, and then this unbelievable destruction outside, and he came up with a theory.
Muirhead's reconstruction of what happened is just chillingly logical. He figured Ducat and Marshall went outside to secure a supply crate during a lull in a storm. From inside, MacArthur sees it, a freak colossal wave building out on the horizon. He leaps from his chair in a panic, knocking it over, and sprints outside to warn them, completely forgetting his coat. And just as he gets to them, that wave doesn't just crash against the cliff. It explodes up the 110-foot face and sweeps all three of them into the ocean in a single, violent instant.
What MacArthur probably saw is what we now call a rogue wave. You have to understand, for most of the 20th century, scientists thought these things were just myths, sailors' tall tales. The idea of a single giant wall of water just appearing out of nowhere seemed scientifically impossible. And this is the truly brilliant part of the story. Muirhead proposed his theory, calling it an unexpectedly large roller, way back in 1900. It took science almost 100 years to prove him right. It wasn't until 1995, when an oil rig in the North Sea actually measured something called the Draupner wave, that we got the first hard scientific proof that these monster waves were real. Muirhead's deduction was finally, and spectacularly, proven correct. So the case was officially closed. The cause of death for all three men was listed as probably drowning. But for the families, Ducat's wife and his 4 kids, MacArthur's wife and his 2 children, there were no bodies. There was no funeral, no real closure. The lighthouse got new keepers, of course, but it earned a reputation as a haunted, lonely place.
And then, finally, in 1971, technology caught up. The light was automated. The keepers were no longer needed. They left Island Moor for the very last time, leaving the island to its wind, its ghosts, and its silence.
Look, the rogue wave theory, it's almost certainly what happened. It fits every piece of evidence scientifically and logically. But that final question, that's why this story still gets under our skin. It's not just about the wave. It's about that stopped clock, the overturned chair, and the 3 men who, in the blink of an eye, were just gone. What really haunts us, I think, is the perfect, terrifying silence they left behind.